What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a little video about the potential future of the Divinity series. Now that said, this video is going to be full of a lot of speculation, as obviously I don't work for Larian Studios, and as such they are very capable of just doing whatever at the end of the day. But I'm going to make some educated guesses, things I'd like to see, that kind of stuff. Now, I felt like making this video, frankly, because I haven't talked about Divinity in a while, but if you're unaware, this channel used to be very much so dedicated to the Divinity series. I made all sorts of video about the lore, the game itself, Divinity Original Sin 2, that is, etc., etc. In fact, to this day, if you search Divinity lore, you're going to trip over my videos. That said, let's dive into the purpose of this video. So, as everyone is perfectly aware, Larian is currently working on Baldur's Gate 3. But the question here really is, once they get done with that, what could they potentially do for the Divinity franchise? So this is a question I still get every once in a while, even though my channel these days primarily just focuses on reviews and guides and stuff for other games. Because of all that Divinity content, I will field this question every once in a while, so I decided to make a video about it. Prior to the announcement, so to speak, of Baldur's Gate 3, we were aware that Larian was actually working on a game called Divinity Fallen Heroes. But to say they were working on it is already a bit of a stretch, because they had actually contracted most of the work out to a separate studio, because they themselves had been working on Baldur's Gate 3. Now, a month before that game's release, or what was supposed to be its release, in November 2019, it was actually put on hold indefinitely. This was because it was determined that Fallen Heroes needed more dev time and resources than Larian was able to give it, and the contractor had basically done everything they were contracted to do. And presumably Larian didn't want to pay them to continue work on it or something to that effect, but basically Larian wants to do more with Fallen Heroes than was within the scope of that contract, it would seem. Conceivably, and this is probably my first big point, is that when Larian finishes with Baldur's Gate 3, one would presume they will probably leave a small team working on fixes and DLCs, etc. If the game happens to get any DLCs, I have no idea. But my point is, they'll probably still have a team working on that. But then the bulk of the Larian studios, and I believe at this point they have like 5 or 6 studios in total actually, would probably move on to other things. Now, assuming they don't get caught up in another project, I think the safest bet would be that they are likely to finish the work on Fallen Heroes, because apparently that game was mostly done. So they could conceivably pick that back up, put the work into it they want to, then finally release a game that is almost guaranteed to do well. And on the back of BG3, again, almost certainly doing well, that would just be an easy route to take, and I think it makes a lot of financial sense, provided they don't have some unknown thing that they're working on after the release of BG3. Now, after that, it's really anybody's game. While it's easy to make some guesses about Fallen Heroes and stuff because the work is mostly done, or at least is supposed to be mostly done, beyond that, who knows? They could decide to do a million things, they could decide to work on new IP, they could decide to do all sorts of stuff, it's hard to say. Now, what I personally would like the most is if they worked on a Divinity 3. Now, I did not say Divinity Original Sin 3. As someone who used to cover the Divinity series a lot, it is an important distinction that most people who have played Original Sin 2 do not realize, is that Divinity 2 is a separate game, because there's Divinity 2 and then there's Divinity Original Sin 2. Divinity 2 Ego Draconis, or the Dragon Knight Saga as it will sometimes be referred to, was an old third-person kind of action game that they released way back when. Honestly, it's not too bad. It's cheap. You should check it out. It's definitely AA and a little janky, but it's not bad. But Divinity 2 actually takes place about 60 years after Divinity Original Sin 2. Because of that, we actually already kind of know the general canon of things that are supposed to happen after Original Sin 2, and Fallen Heroes is set to take place 2 years after Original Sin 2, so we even kind of know the ending. It might just elaborate on some things there, but we know basically what is supposed to happen in those games. Now, what I personally would like is a Divinity 3, because Divinity 2 ends on a bit of a cliffhanger, and I will say, going to be some major plot spoilers here for Original Sin 2, so if you don't want those, maybe stop listening. But that said, if you are unaware, again, major plot spoilers, in Original Sin 2, Lucian turns out to be alive and very much so well, which is also part of the marketing for Fallen Heroes. We know that he survives Fallen Heroes because Lucian is alive in Divinity 2. Furthermore, we also know that Damien, who if you've only played Original Sin 2, you won't be familiar with, but he's a very big part of the rest of the series, is kind of Damien's bastard son, and he's talked about a lot in Original Sin 2, but mostly off-screen. He is, however, very present in Divinity 2, as a plan he is working on to take over the known world ultimately kind of fails. However, he does live. Lucian spends most of Divinity 2 trapped, and also lives. We actually see him at the end of the game in person. So for Divinity 3, personally, I would love if they picked up that storyline. Now, Damien himself is supposed to be an avatar of the Chaos God, or the demon god known as Chaos. That's a bit of a deep lore dive. Gonna needs a lot of explaining. It's a little outside the scope of this, but it's actually even mentioned in Original Sin 2, by the way. It's just very hidden. But I would love to see a continuation of that, because that little subplot has been on the back burner basically since Divinity 2. They haven't really addressed it at all. So I personally would love a game that goes further out and explains or elaborates on or continues that plot thread between Damien being the avatar of this demon god, as well as Lucian being alive, and just honestly carry the universe forward. Because as it stands, and as people who watched this channel since I was making all that lore have probably figured out, I'm kind of just out of Divinity stuff to talk about. Like occasionally I'll do a video or two here and there when I'm just kind of missing the conversation, so to speak, but really I'm just out of things to talk about when it comes to that universe, so I hope that they eventually make more games like Fallen Heroes. I would love to cover Fallen Heroes if they pick it back up, but I think the best thing for the franchise would be a new game, a Divinity 3. Now, how likely we are to get that, who knows, right? I would be surprised if Fallen Heroes doesn't get released, again, just because it would be an easy win, in my opinion. However, Divinity 3 actually continuing the series, who knows? But there you go, guys, kind of just some speculation on the future of the Divinity series. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts down below, and remember to like, comment, subscribe, all the typical YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching, especially if you're one of my viewers from the time when I was doing all that Divinity lore, as the channel has grown substantially since then, and I couldn't have done that without you guys, as well as everybody watching this video now. Truly, thank everybody watching, may you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.